So you said country stuff and country living though, and I really want to touch on this.
Go ahead.
Is that idea, and you talk to anybody in the country and they hear the term white privilege. I'm sorry, I had to bring it up.
I know you were gonna
and I
do
tried
it.
to segue it multiple times, but I feel like every time I have any guest on, if Mike ever gets us a black person on the show, I'll ask them the same question. But it's like,
It lives too far away, man.
what's because we're on a phone call right now,
Oh no, I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna get their ass now.
Point being is everybody's this is a very popular word that's thrown around, especially among, I would say, left activists and the conscious guy always bring up, oh man, he doesn't shut up about white privilege. It's like,
consciously, yeah.
That term doesn't fly in rural area. No. Like he said Idaho earlier, and I was going to bring it up then, but I'm throwing the Hail Mary now to bring it up now because it's assumed that somehow it's different. Like it's different out here. If you're white, you're white. Like there is no majority and minority, and I could see why you could use that term in the city or in everybody knows there's pockets. Look at what's it?
I have no idea.
Georgia.
Atlanta,
Georgia.
Yeah.
Chicago. You got pockets of where black people just stay in the city. It's a safe zone, if you will, quote unquote. But like you get out here in the country, like that term just doesn't fly. People are like, no, there's no I'm not getting a job based on a type of thing. So Sean,
because it's predominantly white, so it's like,
right,
why would this guy give me a job because I'm white if it's other white people working there?
I really think that term needs to be changed to majority privilege because.
Well, I mean, it's
a truth.
Well, it's kind of truth both ways. Cause it's like, all right, white people are the majority in America.
I'm not getting a job at a black barbershop tomorrow.
Unless you can cut your ass off.
And I bet I could, and they'd be like, listen, you're just not going to, I could walk into that place, and it'd be like, record scratch, like, are you lost?
Right
yeah.
And then they'll be like, you want to cut? And they'll get the person who can cut everybody's hair. Like, you can go to Bruce in the back. He'll cut you. Trust me, I've seen it happen. I was getting a haircut, and 3 Indian dudes walked in. Well, no, because it was funny because they just saw a barbershop, and the 3 Indian dudes walked in, and they were like, can you cut? They could. Yeah, and the guy was like, and they were like, hold on, and they literally went and got the guy who cut anybody's hair, who was like proficient in cutting hair for everybody, and he was like, oh yeah, he's like, how many? And they were like, all 3, and he was like, oh shit, all right, bet. And they went to the back, and he cut them all, and I saw him doing because I got a couple cuts of Supercut one time.
He just did a lazy number 2, like
no. He did exactly what I asked. He did exactly what I asked. He broke out moose that we didn't know he had, like all this shit that was like a white barbershop is the norm. He was like, hold on, let me go deep in there. Here goes my white people hair, even though they're not white people. And he was like, I mean, he was combing, he was cutting and combing and doing all that shit. I was actually sitting there like, this motherfucker's good.
He knows what's up.
Oh yeah, and they all like, oh, thank you so much. They gave him a big tip, and he's like, see, it's the benefit of knowing how to cut everybody's hair.
We're gonna do it sometime. I'm gonna go to a black barber.
Oh, I can take you to the one I go to.
All right, let's do it.
Well, see, you don't get your hair's not long. Like if you want it, you'll be good.
Long. Your hair's short.
No, I'm saying your hair's not long, so it's not gonna be hard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like,
you gotta go do this podcast live from the black barbershop.
Hey, don't tempt me with a good time. Okay?
Well, first of all, they would love that. By the way, my barber, he would die laughing, and he would be like, "So, what did you think was going to happen?"
Thought there was going to be a burning cross when I came in here.
But no, that's y'all.
But yeah, exactly, he would say that. So, Sean, that what's I gotta get the takeaway from here is to your thoughts behind that.
Oh, the white privilege
phrase. How, you see, I mean, you've lived in multiple places, multiple areas.
I gotta prepare myself.
I don't know. I guess in reference to what?
Mike's turning white because his knuckles. He's just squeezing so hard.
No,
I'm just I like how you actually had to squeeze your knuckles and be like, "What you talking about?" Oh,
yeah. See, I say in reference to what, because like I don't really understand the term. It's hard. Like I don't know. I mean, again, a lot of the times if it's brought up, like so who uses the term white privilege?
Usually, everybody but white people.
Right. So everybody but
Asian people don't
white
use it either.
people.
I was like,
Typically-
Asian people.
typically we're probably looking at, I guess, black
don't
people
know.
saying white privilege.
Well, that's what was focused on here in America. So I was gonna say,
Right.
yeah, black people say
So-
white privilege.
So in what sense though? Like, yeah, I think
Life.
a lot of the times, well, and I think a lot of the times it gets looked at as the, the 1%ers we're talking about, like people who make all this money and have had all this fortune and so on and so forth. It's like, I mean, I don't know. I look at like, all right, we got on this call here, we've got 2 white guys and a black guy.
Reverse Oreo.
And reverse Oreo. And I don't,
White chocolate.
and I don't,
Oreo.
and I can't.
The best
I
ones.
can't say that,
Goddamn
that.
right.
I mean, again, unfortunately, Mike, I don't know much of your background or history, but I can't say that
He's
any
very
one of
racist
us
black
is
guy.
in it. I can't say that any one of us is in much of a better or different position because of
because
our
skin too.
privilege or our skin. Yeah. So like, I don't know exactly what we're
Well-
speaking of when we say
So
privilege.
the point is like the benefit of the doubt, right?
Well,
Like,
that's
so,
what I said. Hold on, don't be taking my saying, goddammit. That's what I said.
Well, so and that's why I said this earlier about like the 3. Okay, so the chief police and there was 3 cops, right? And the guy who was tenured expected to get the job,
Yeah.
right? He took the test, blah blah. But realistically, he finished 3rd,
He wasn't the
last.
best person.
But he was, he's there the longest, this, that, and the other. So in his mind, there was no reason he shouldn't have gotten that job. Could you
Right.
imagine if that guy would have been black, what would have happened? Not,
No, I know what you're talking about.
he would have blamed the whole thing on a race thing, and then that's a quote unquote state of white privilege. Like, oh, you just didn't give it to me because
They're
of the
gonna
color
say
of my
the good old
skin,
boys club.
or good old boys club, or now all of a sudden this this thing is like used against me.
To that point though, if I'm putting myself in where I think that would go, right? If
Mhm.
there's three guys up for the job and then one of them's black, I'm gonna probably say 70% of the time that black guy's getting the job.
See, that's what. See,
You
it's
think
funny.
so? If you're put up against a black guy, you think he's going to beat you?
Yeah, if we're talking about, again, now you're saying that this guy was the worst or of the 3 options or whatnot, but like let's say it's me versus Mike and we have relatively equal credentials, right?
Mhm.
I mean, what's going to be the defining?
Well, it depends. It depends on the affirmative action quota. Have they met it already?
Yeah, it's true.
Because if not, yeah, they're gonna look at me. If so, you might get a good shot.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, because again, that's where I look at the the white privilege aspect of it is in that case
I'm
in
gonna
an
tell you
equal battle I don't think I'm winning it. Just like if they're picking somebody to go to college in an equal battle, the white person's not going to win that one.
So to that point though, and I'm going to ask you this is like and we've talked about this in the past, is like if you hiring somebody who is black, it's like it's kind of like the same thing if you're a guy and you hire a woman, like you get afraid that if something goes wrong, she's gonna pull the Me Too movement on you. It's like, oh, he touched me bad. And you're like,
Sexual
"Bitch,
harassment,
I wasn't even there. I called in sick that day. Or if the person is black and they didn't do something that they clearly was defined in their job, you get afraid that they're going to pull the race card on you and be like, oh, it's because I'm black. And then they're going to open an HR case. And so you're like, dude, you're just like, I don't even want to deal with it. So I'm just going to pass and I'm going to take the white guy because I'm afraid this guy's going to ruin my life over it.
And again, we're talking like that's why I asked like, what are we talking about when we say white privilege? Because there's a lot of different ways to look at it, right? Now, if we go back to like police brutality or this and that, there are things that I can't speak on, right? So I don't know what it's like to be a black man in America. So like I don't know, if I'm getting pulled over versus a black guy getting pulled over in the same situation. So so to the point I just made, a white guy and a black guy, pretty equal credentials, up for a job, right? Who do I think gets it? The black guy. Now a white guy and a black guy get pulled over, equal situations. Who do I think is going to have an easier time at getting pulled over? The white guy. The white guy.
Yeah.
So that's why when you say white privilege, I mean, and that's going off of my quote unquote experience, but I've never experienced being a black man pulled over, let's say, so I can't say that I go off of what I know or what we've seen or heard in the media, right? And this and that, like So to that point, when we say white privilege, I think it depends on how you look at it. And I don't see it really personally as being as big of a thing as maybe it gets made out to be. But again, when you talk about police brutality or something of that sort,
Mhm.
I don't. It's not fair. I can't speak on something like that. I don't know.
I'll tell you, the funny thing about it is, I finally, well, I won't say finally, but I realized a while ago, because I used to say, oh, white privilege when I was young. And I met with my, like, I would say relatives and, my dad, whatever. And I say they were talking about, which was just an all encompassing, no matter what, the white man is getting this and they're getting money and they're getting this and blah, blah, blah. Because they come from a different time. I mean, they come from a time
Right.
like I tell Steve all the time, like exaggerations now, because they're
Were
exaggerations.
realities then.
Were reality then.
100%.
Right.
So that's it's like, so when people are like, I don't understand why they say that. Like, well, 40, 50 years ago, that shit was true as fuck.
Very
But
true. Yes.
so but now it's like I have kind of I've kind of, I won't say walked back, but I've thought about it, especially after talking like with people like Steve and just white people in general, where it's like, because they're all say the same thing. They're like, I work my ass off, blah blah. I'm like, well, I don't think we meant that. And it's like, but I was like, it's perceived that you basically wake up white one day and you're like, all right, you know what? I'm tired of doing this sports stuff. Let me go get my mansion and my well-paying job and my wife and my kids and get my yacht house, my yacht.
Said by
and
Kanye
my
West.
So
Exactly.
So to this point, and not to cut you off, but to the point is that a lot of the times when I hear the white privilege tossed around,
Mhm.
I have the belief that it has to do with this 1% of people that hold the wealth, and they're that doesn't exist in Black America.
Mhm.
It only exists in white America and a very small percent of white America. So we talk about old money. That old
Mhm.
money typically is tossed around by white people and a certain select number, of families. So you look at the majority of white Black Americans in general. I don't think that anybody's the upper hand. Like, it's not like any of the three of us. And again, not that I know everybody's background, but any of the three of us are like, oh yeah, I come from money and I'm inheriting this, that, and the other thing. It's like whatever right.
I'd be
Anything,
an asshole.
But I think that it's safe to say we probably all know at least one person who you're like, well, I know there's some money that you've had, or
You've
there's
had it
been
easier,
a little bit.
Yeah. I was gonna
Silver
say,
spoon, but there's at least a bronze spoon, feeding in
Exactly.
your mouth throughout. You know what I'm saying? So there's people out there, but again, I think that we look at that because we look at some of these 1%ers who all tend to be the white guy or what have you. And
well, that's where the media shit comes from, because it's like I forgot exactly who said it, but they were like, if you can make the lowest, poorest white man believe that he's better than even the best Black man out there, you can always pick his pockets, because he'll always believe you. So he'll be hating this particular person and trying to do everything he can to make them not good while himself. Because I was like, in all, race one is a made up concept. It's not even a real thing. It was just made up so people could describe, like, well, I don't know you and you look different, so
It's your fault.
Black. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, well, no, I'm saying
Right.
just like, you're Black, you're blah blah. But I was like, and I tell Steve, I say, really, the biggest thing is class. Like, that's how do you keep people from worrying, from not noticing that the pay gap from employee to the CEO has significantly tripled and jumped over the last 50 years, that the middle class has been stagnant or is disappearing. It's like, well, what you do? Well, you're white, he's Black. Let's talk about that. Hey, did you know that this,
Right.
this, and this Black guy? And then they're like, hey, did you know that Black people are complaining and blah, blah? And now me and Steve fighting.
Bickering.
But we're not, it's like, but what we should be doing is focusing on making it, I say fair for everybody. I don't mean giving money. I mean, like, hey, did you know that these guys, like, they don't pay taxes, they fucking find all the loopholes, they got all this craziness going on. But if I'm too busy arguing with you two, I assume he's white, correct?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that I want the asshole moment where David Webb was like, okay, this guy's been Black the whole time. It's like, but
I didn't know.
But I'm just saying, so like, I'm too busy arguing over here telling you guys, kind of like an antiquated thing where I'm like, you guys get everything, and then you guys are like, well, you guys are getting everything, and you guys blah blah. And I'm like, well, you don't have to work for it. And we're too busy fighting over here. We can't actually fight the real issue or problems because the race is such a big thing. But again, it's made up.
Yeah.
But I told Steve a while ago, I was like, my only thing with white privilege is the benefit of the doubt. And you can't call it majority privilege, but again, unfortunately, the majority is white. So,
Well,
it's
I
like,
think if you went to somewhere else, if I was
Yeah.
a white guy who went down the wrong street in Atlanta, and I don't want
Oh,
to say
yeah,
that
yeah.
in a bad way, but to that point where
Well,
the
not Atlanta,
barbershop
I'd
is,
say-
and I got pulled over
I'd
by a
say-
black cop in a black neighborhood, it'd be like, "What you doing here?" I'm
oh
like,
yeah, they're gonna think you're
I'm not buying
drugs.
drugs.
Exactly.
See, I'm here to get some H, get some heroin. They're gonna know. They're gonna search my car real quick.
And-
Oh yeah, they're gonna definitely take you out of black.
And the same
And-
thing's gonna
and
happen on the flip side in a white suburb. They're like, "What you doing here?"
A lot-
You know what I mean?
A lot of the times, let's keep in mind too that yes, I think what white people get, will get the benefit of the doubt, but a lot of the time it's going to be about your presentation. So I mean about the way you present yourself. So
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
let's think about like a biker gang. Like
No, you
in
made
my-
this. You made this same exact point with the
Like-
skinhead, and it was a very
Yes.
good point. He made
right,
this point.
like
Oh, okay.
the skinhead or the biker. Like in my mind, when I think of a biker, right, I
Mhm.
think of the white guy. I think of the white guy, bigger guy,
Very much
maybe
so.
with some ripped up and he's got the vest on and stuff like that. I'm
A
not gonna
criminal,
go.
actually.
All right,
Yes.
right, and honestly, for all I know, the guy could be a nice guy, but I'm probably staying my distance away because
Exactly.
in my head, I'm just like, the way this guy's presenting himself doesn't look like he's
The leather
a
vest,
guy who
all that shit.
wants to just have
And he
a
could
nice
be a weekend
conversation.
warrior.
Right.
Exactly. Most of them are
So,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you
98%.
gotta keep that,
No
you
Hell's
gotta keep that in
Angel. Yeah.
mind with anything. It goes on with anything. Like when you're, if you're getting approached by a cop or anything like that, everything's all about how you're presenting yourself. So like
I agree.
that guy, like if I'm walking down the street and that guy's on, I might cross the street, dude. I mean, I'm honestly
crossing
might
the
be
street
like,
for sure.
Oh, I'm
I see
crossing
the
the
guy-
street too. I'm like,
Well, we know you are.
I was like, I'm not getting curb stopped today.
yeah. If I see
He's got a
some dude with
swastika tattooed on the
swastika,
forehead.
Yeah,
Like,
I am hitting the road. I'm
but
getting
here's the
out of
thing: if I'm in goddamn Baltimore and I'm going down the alley and I see a group of black kids, or I don't say black kids, but black, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call them, and I don't know them,
Little yum yums.
little yo-yos. I was like, I don't know them. Like, you know what? I probably don't need to be down this alley anymore. Let me go walk back the way I came, and I'm gonna
Right.
make it obvious. It's like, but
Right.
now I will tell you, I will try and like, it will be in my head like, should I keep walking? Should I go back?
Right.
Should I keep walking?
Right.
Now on the sidewalk, I'm like, all right, it's people. I'll go around them. I'll go
but
around them on the sidewalk, but I'm not going through.
Right.
I'm not going through. I'm
Right.
going around.
But again, like like if you take the color out of it, red or black or white,
Oh,
and we
scary
just
people
talk
are
about
scary.
and we just talk about a
gotta
group
keep that
of
down.
people. Again, I'm talking about it's about the presentation, right? So it's about how you present yourself. So if you take the color out of it, and we said, all right, there's a group of people, you don't know whether they're black or white. If it's a group of people and they're like well dressed, they're wearing suits or whatever have you,
Yeah, they can.
whether it's black or white, you're probably like, I'm just gonna walk right past these people. I feel
Yeah,
comfortable.
exactly. Okay,
You know, if it's a group, again, take the color out of it, black or white. If they're wearing biker gang stuff or something of the sort, you're like, I'm walking around. Doesn't matter what the color is. It's
This is true.
presentation of how you look. So like as long as you present yourself okay, and if somebody's coming by, you're like, hey, how you doing, sir? Like,
See,
you're gonna feel better about yourself.
That's actually how I find out I find out either whether you're a threat or an asshole, either one, because I always like, especially if I look at you, like if I look at you and we connect eyes, I'm gonna either give you a head nod, I'm going, how you doing? And if you don't say anything back and you look at me, I'm like, all right, this might be a potential serial killer or it might be a potential robber.
Right.
I was like,
Right.
I don't trust this motherfucker. Like, or just an asshole. But either way, I don't trust this motherfucker immediately because I made eye contact and, I went out of my way to say something. But that's me personally. It's like, because that's how I've surveyed threats in my life. And it's worked out immaculately. I'm going to tell you, because there's been a lot of times where the people who have done things to other people actually said hello to me before they went and fucked up other people. I'm like, whew, good thing I said something.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
but yeah, I was just saying what you're saying makes total sense. It's like so I think and me and Steve talked about this. I was like the biggest issue, like if it comes to race, if we're talking about race, the biggest issue is the freedom part, like the equality part, has been such a short time that we actually it's unfortunately needs more time. It's like, yeah, when we get 200 years, like America has had it, 200 years of the equality,
Right.
like I don't want to hear. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna be dead, but
Right.
listen, but I was like, nobody I know who would think like me would want to hear somebody talking about that. Like, if we're years and years removed, but we're like I told Steve, I was like, really, we're mid to late 70s of
Well,
like equality.
and again, I think one of the things that people need to realize again is it's not just white and black, right? When I talk about the 1%ers, we're talking about these people who are old heads, old money. You know what I'm saying?
I got something to say to that.
So like if I take me personally, I am only third generation. I mean, my grandparents on both sides came off the boat. So that means when they came over, they had nothing. When we talk about three generations, that's not that long ago.
Yeah,
so,
it's assumed.
So you can't assume that, it's a white privilege or you were given everything. So 3 generations ago, my parents were coming over with nothing. So that's not that long ago.
You definitely didn't own any slaves either.
Right. Well, so then when you talk about again, I don't know that. I don't know what Grandma was doing. I don't know what Grandma was doing.
Grandma had one young slave, right?
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson.
Exactly.
but like so you look at that like again, a lot of the time it's talk of like the old English folk who came over and took over the land, and then they got all the wealth and they kept it going through the family throughout the years. And
we've talked about that too, about I was like, even the 40 acres and a mule, which I don't know if you heard,
right?
Steve,
right.
Oh, I was like, well, that was actually a real thing that got turned down, and it's funny because Steve did all this research not too long ago.
So 40 acres and a mule, and
I
mentioned this before on a podcast, and then I did some research on it, and never came really up again. But like the idea was that we talked about 40 acres and a mule, that it was. You had mentioned actually something about it being given to Confederate soldiers, but what it was,
not Confederate, but like just if you fought,
right? If you fought, so what it really was it was basically
slaves.
And this is the guy always, it's not Frederick. Maybe it was Frederick Douglass. It was like there was another guy, Hamilton or something, not Hamilton. Started with an H, and I got it written down. But it basically got them all together. It was like, hey, what is going to help the black community thrive? And he's like, really. We need to be left alone because we realize there is going to be a lot of hatred towards us after this. He's like, okay, what do you need? He's like, 40 acres and a mule. And like everybody, so that's where the term came from. It's like, basically we need some land and we need to be left alone to do our own thing.
Yeah.
So the idea was, okay, and it was, I want to say somewhere, it was along the coast in the Carolina area, and they're like, okay, we're going to take all this land from slave owners and piece it out, and it's going to be divvied up to, kind of like a land grab, but for black people. It's going to be like, all right, this is your spot. And do your thing. We're not going to mess with you. And Lincoln died before that was passed, and then that's why it was recanted on. But it was like a full-blown bill. Things were in the works, and it was supposed to happen, and Lincoln was shot. So then it was backpedaled. It never happened. But to that point of what you said about, like, it sucks that because of the color of your skin being white, you're guilty by association. To your point, 3 generations over, you didn't have an inherited wealth thing. Like, and I could definitely say to, like, okay, if you could trace the lineage of, and this could kind of come into like reparations topic, is like, okay, if you could trace your wealth lineage back to slavery, that's one thing. You're not chasing. You're not tracing Jeff Bezos's wealth back to slavery. It started in his mom's garage. You know what I mean?
I thought it was his shit. I didn't even know it was
Well, it might have been. It could have been his. Could have been mom's. But the same thing happened with Steve Jobs. You know what I mean? And the point is, the idea behind generational wealth is literally you were born into it. And there's a lot of self-made white people today and black people that were not born into that wealth, and they've both made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's required. when you talk about class separation and that the top 1%, even though Jeff Bezos is the richest person basically in the world,
Yep.
he technically, class-wise, is not considered in the top 1% because of you have to be inherently wealthy.
I got you.
You have to inherit wealth
Mm-hmm.
to be considered in this certain class, like a Rockefeller.
I'm gonna tell you right now, that motherfucker's in the 1%. That dude.
Income-wise, yes. Class-wise, technically not.
He's new.
He's new, exactly.
New.
Now, 3 generations from now,
start.
if Bezos is still a thing, he could start a lineage, but he's not stuff's not named after him like there is Rockefeller. And, the streets, and it's not many people. So that's just the most popular one.
Exactly.
Right.
But the point is, that's what controls the real America and the real money, because they own most of the economy, and it's diversified, so you can't, you can trace it, but you know what I'm saying? It's not recognized.
Yeah,
that's where the power and
right.
And again, like this, to go back full circle with the question of white privilege, I think again it gets lost in certain things because I just because of the color of your skin, I don't think a lot of people are looking at the fact that there's a lot of new white people here. When I say new white people, within 100 years,
that's
like
true.
The family has only been here for 100 years, and I mean, there's a lot that aren't, but I'm saying, again, I look at my family is within the last 100 years of America, so we don't have anything. There's not land that we have passed down that we have. Like I have 2 houses. My parents have 1 house. Mm-hmm. We don't have 2 houses, and my brother owns the house because my parents couldn't afford it.
Right.
So like there's things that get overlooked. I mean, I think that there's a lot of that stuff that when I hear white privilege, I don't know what it means other than I could only attest. Well, I can't even attest to it, but I could take your word for it that if you and I get pulled over in a similar situation, that it's going to be a little bit scarier for you than it is for me.
And that's benefit of the doubt.
Well, what's funny? I would say that right there. That's like, but to kind of go to what you're saying is, and I asked Steve, I've actually asked a lot of white people about this.
My point is, white people are still very scared of the cops.
I don't know, but I was gonna say this. This is like I guess a little side thing. I was like, I never actually met too many white people who were told exactly how I was told about how to interact with the cops. Unless you were like a cop's son or nephew or some shit like that. It's like, but what I'm saying is because I've known almost every black person I've ever met has been told what to do with the cops because of the fear of them killing you or arresting you or something like that. Now, again, it doesn't have to be truthful, but I just know, like, put it this way, if I go 50 black people to the 50 white people I've known, it's like almost all those black people have been told, hey, by the way, if you get pulled over by the cops, keep your hands visible. Say, yes, sir, no, sir, blah, blah, blah. Now, that doesn't mean everybody does it, because, I mean, that's like you could, if you have 3 kids and you teach them all the same thing, you're going to get 3 different results. 2 of them might listen, but it's going to be 1 who doesn't. You know what I mean? And that's just people. I was like, that's always one thing I wondered. I was like, because I used to think that was white privilege. Because I'm like,
well, and see, that's kind of hilarious because I guarantee Sean feels the same way. It's weird that I get why you say that, but it's like, to us, that was taught to us as common sense. Like, hey, this guy's a cop. He's got the gun. 10 and 2. That's on your lap before he gets there. You hand it to him. That was like a conversation that was like, while you're on your learner's permit, you get pulled over and the cops are like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
saying the same thing, learner's permit, but I'm saying this is like a repeat conversation. Where
no, and I understand that, but it's acted like
it always ends. It's because you're black,
right? And it's acted like the point you're saying is because you're black, and to us, it's told no, he's got a gun. Like he's the authority. You respect. You do this. You do this. You know what I mean? The lights. Have the dimmer light on. Have the hands on the wheel. Have the stuff ready there before he even gets to the car. Because, look, this guy might kill you. It was never.
I was taught, like, I was just going to say, like, I remember being taught the same thing. It's hands on top of the wheel, like, where they can see your hands. Like, so I'd have the window rolled down by the time he got there, hands on top of the wheel. And then when he approached and asked for license or registration, I would say, my registration is in my glove compartment. Is it okay if I reach over and get it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was taught, so he gives me okay, so he knows I'm going to reach, and then you go do it. But like, I understand that, probably not a lot of people necessarily taught that way or this and that. And I could understand, again, it being different for a white person versus a black person.
As can I, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I said it wasn't necessarily not. I just noticed that it was like, because I used to say it. I'd be like, yeah, when your dad or your mom or something tells you how to act, and they'd be like, no, they never did. I mean, they were like, I don't act crazy, but they're like, no, nobody ever had that real conversation with me. I was like,
really?
What? And I Mike, the other one, and
Mike.
a lot of those little white people that we knew there. I mean, they were cool people. I'm saying it just because they were white.
Yeah, he wasn't a bad guy.
I was like,
he was a little off, but anyway, keep going.
I was like, but I've met a lot. Now that doesn't mean all of them. You know what I mean? I have met people who are like, yeah, they were like, well, usually it came because like somebody was a cop in their family. They're like, yeah, my uncle told me this, that, and that because this could be perceived this way, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I was like,
right.
I was like, really? Because I was like, these people that I'm talking to weren't cops, and they were just like, no, my mom told me, like, my grandma told me, my daddy told me, my granddad told me, like, like, and it literally had to do with being black. It wasn't the sense. It was like, it was.
But again, to your going back to your point before, I mean, like, you don't have to go back, far to when it was not a good time for black people in America. I mean,
No, I know. Give me a sec. Steve's gonna talk to you real quick.
Yeah, he's got to take a phone call. But to that point, though, it's like, yeah, like it was a. He's like, don't you say shit while I'm calling. It was like a talk down thing or a handed down thing. It's like.
Yeah, so
understood.
Again, if you go back to the 1950s, like, we kind of joked before about how, like, they say, oh, racism the worst it's ever been. I mean, no, back in like the 1950s and stuff like that, things were real bad.
Right.
So like, if they were taught a certain way and it's been passed out, I don't think it's as bad today, but we also do have to look at the media again. So there probably is the perceived thing again that if you're black in America, you're also probably taught, you get the feeling at least that like the cops are the bad guys.
Right.
And it's all around. It's the way that everybody's thinking, right? So now if a cop thinks that, a black guy is a bad guy, or if a black guy thinks a cop is a bad guy, because right now, when you look on the media, that's how they're showing one way or the other, depending on what channel you're watching.
Agreed.
And it shouldn't be that way. And because of that, the interactions, the senses are heightened. Everybody's on like this alert and like, hey, I know I don't have to do this. You're doing this because like it's all over the place. It shouldn't be that way.
Right.
And people just need to respect each other. Like, but again, because of what's out there and what's being seen, it's like the cop pulls up to a car in the middle of the night, and if it's a black guy, and who knows, he starts talking back to him right off the bat. He's not going to feel safe all of a sudden because of everything that he sees.
Right. 100%. Yes. He's setting himself up for failure.
And vice versa, if the black guy is trying to follow the rules and hand on top of the wheel, and the cop just comes out and is very rude or being an asshole to him,
D-bag.
Then he's not going to feel comfortable, because if the cop's like, get out of the car, then he's like, why is the cop asking me to get out of the car? I was just speeding. Like, right, you know what I'm saying? So then all of a sudden he's like, well, this isn't protocol and I don't feel safe now. So again, it goes both ways, and it's something that I can't speak to. I've had limited interactions with cops. If I never have one again, I would, that would be a win. You hope you don't want to get pulled over. It's a scary situation. You don't want to be in a bad position where you're having an interaction with the cop. So, I mean, that's the way I feel. Once again, it's to me, it's you want to obey the law when you're dealing with the cop. I wouldn't want to have the arguments any which way.
Yeah, and to that point, that's why I've kind of said, like, look, I've had multiple interactions with the cops and have been treated a certain way if I didn't, do the right thing or this, that, and the other. So it's like that's why it's always kind of difficult for people who have had something bad happen to them and knew that it happened to them because of their action, not because of the color of skin. And I can't. That's very hard because it's like, look, I haven't been in a situation where I've been judged or, Point being is, did the crime, did the time. Like whatever
Right.
I did, I look back now and I'm like, yeah, I deserve that. You know what I mean? It wasn't like,
Right.
oh, well, it happened because of this or happened because of that. I'm like, yeah, I got everything I deserved. It happened to me. It wasn't because of, a race thing or this, that, and the other, which, I'm watching this.
That's what I noticed about white people. Go ahead.
Yeah. Mike's back. I'm watching this.
All right, change the subject. Change the subject. He's back. He's back.
Yeah. Mike's got me watching this show, Lovecraft Country, right?
Are you watching it?
Oh, yeah, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Turn out that I can see where it's going to, because it's totally about like the ultimate victim show, because it's like the white lady just came out the skin of the white man, and I'm like, oh, I see. It's all about being a white man now, huh? Because like the black lady is now a white woman, and she's running around like
he's
crazy.
He's definitely not there.
Are you watching the same show?
Yes.
No. He's
we
right.
can't go down this rabbit hole.
But
my point is
basically like they're using potions and like witchcraft to like be other people, but the way they do it is like really gory.
It's very gory and it's very crazy and it's kind of cool.
It looks crazy. I know it is. That's why I was like, see, you'll like it.
It's like Stranger Things meets.
Nah, I don't even know if it's Stranger Things.
Oh, for a second it is. It's like one episode of Stranger Things with all the monsters in the beginning. It's like, what are these things? It's Stranger Things. Like, nope, not at all. And it turns into like, oh, it's Dracula. It's like, nope, not at all.
If you notice, it's actually like different. Each little.
It's like a different episode of Black Mirror, but yet with racism somehow. It's like.
Well, it's still set in the 50s and 60s.
Point being is like you get the real idea of what it was like only a short few years ago, and unfortunately that's
we're talking it's 60s, like 50s and 60s,
50s, 60s,
right?
And that's
the guys come back from, I think
it's
Vietnam?
A lot it was World War II, but then they'll show like 54, and then like they'll keep changing the date at the beginning of the episode, so it's like jumping all around, so it's like over a span of time. But the point is like, this is a real thing. So to Mike's point, it's not that far disconnected to say, hey, this wasn't that far time, long ago.
And that's why I tell Steve, I was like, when I hear white people go, oh my God, this is such an exaggeration, this I'm like, well, hey guys, you got to remember, we're not like 100, we're not even 100 years away from horribleness. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm not even talking about slavery. We're just talking about segregation, Jim Crow, and the things that were allowed to happen during that period of time. Because I think redlining was redlining during the time or more like towards the end of that time, because I think
so you had what was it, 1964 or 1965 Civil Rights Act,
Civil Rights Act,
and then after 64. That you had the Post Fair Housing Act. So then basically what happened was military people would come back, and the idea was you weren't allowed in this area, so you weren't given a loan or this, that, and the other. And the big premise was like, okay, they had an income, they had this, they had all the things to come forward, but you weren't the right skin color. So
exactly,
which it again, I'm back to that book that I'm reading. It kind of like it. What I hate the most is how, again, it's kind of back to the ACAB thing. Like one thing happened in an area, it's painted as the entire country. Like, okay, this one cop, did a stupid thing here, George Floyd, and it painted the entire country.
I could tell you the reason why for that, and I'll say it with your cop buddy. I was like, I know, and again, he's an active, and it sounds like he's a decent guy.
Oh, he's an awesome guy. You met him. I mean,
I didn't mean it for that long. I didn't. Really
I know, but my point is like,
I'm saying that because I'm like, the reason being is because of those police unions that do bad. Because, like, and I found out it is hard to get somebody fired. Like when you're a cop, like you would think, oh man, this, like some cops will see something and they'll say something. And it's literally snitches get stitches. That's why if you can ask a lot of people in general, they'll tell you the cops are one of the biggest gangs in America because of that blue wall bullshit. And it's like, and a lot of people believe
depends where.
And I mean, that probably is true. I was like, but at the same time, it's one of those situations where it's like, well, why is this cop who has 10 complaints or whatever and no suspensions, no disciplinary actions, and then finally he went overboard and did something that's fucking us all now? It's like, but why was he able to still be a cop? Because that's like getting ridden up 3 times
Right,
that
but
fast and all.
think about it. You know why?
No.
Politics. Like the amount of time.
Oh, well, that's
like,
where the police union comes in.
Right. But who has to like if you have a sheriff in that area, you're focused on reappointment. If you're a senator or a governor, you're focused on the next election.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that come across your desk that you're like, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Unfortunately,
well, no,
that's
but
the reality of it. Like, you know what I mean?
saying,
You're like, hey, I'm focused on my next term. I don't really care what this guy did.
But the problem is, and then and again, this goes to people who create what am I trying to say? Atmosphere.
Right.
And because you've seen it where like a cop will tell, and then the other cops won't have their back no more. The other cops will flip on them. And this happened. I remember there was this lady who she told on an officer. She stopped an officer from beating a suspect who was handcuffed, whatever. Like they got him, and he was still beating on him. She intervened. He started beating on her, like started fucking her up a little bit, right? And then so when she gets done, she immediately goes to wherever she's supposed to, the higher ups, everything. It gets back to him that she snitched on him. He's still working there. Now all of a sudden they're penalizing her for every little thing she does. The other cops don't want to work with her because of this. It was like, and she had situations. She said she had a situation where it was like a shootout, and she couldn't get back up.
Well, like to the point,
and she ultimately ended up getting fired. You know,
yeah, we've all seen 21 Bridges, okay?
No, actually,
I'm just messing. It's a great movie.
But that's what I'm saying. That type of stuff happens. So what does that do? It's the same thing with no snitching. I know you can't protect me. I'm not telling you shit.
Right.
But the same thing is like it's like, but with the cops, it's like, okay, so when the cops have the same mindset as the mafia and the little gangs in the goddamn area, what do? And now I was going to say that was actually one of my biggest things about policing. It's like everybody goes, oh, well, you know, we got to give them a break and they're only human. I'm like, but you have way too much that you can do. That it's like you're not just like we're normal people. I'm like, you are a normal person, technically speaking, but as an officer, you are not a normal person. I was like, you are, and unfortunately, you're held to a higher standard. I get it. It sucks. Nobody really wants that. I was like,
well, to your point though, that's why the Minnesota police chief resigned. You know what I mean? And that was a black lady.
Something else, but,
no, because and it's talk to the friend about. It's like, listen. Ultimately, the signs are there. You've been warned. That's up to you as a leader to get rid of that person. Not only is she doing the wrong by not getting rid of him, sounds like windshield wipers.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay.
Not only is she doing the wrong thing not getting rid of him, she's doing the wrong thing by not paying attention. She's the wrong skin color for the situation. But she was black. He was a white cop.
Black. Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was black. And to his point, it's like, listen. You know all the telltale signs before it comes there, and he went back to talking about the reason, if you pull the gun and point, okay, you have to file now a boatload of paperwork. That's why they make it so you don't want to point your gun because now you got to file paperwork. They make it so once you pull that taser, you have to file paperwork because they don't want you to pull the taser.
It's crazy. I would rather you pull the taser.
Then, well, again, pointing. So then it goes back to. You got to file this paperwork because now you're going to get a psych evaluation. They're gonna be like, and they say, he says too, it's like, look, the guys who aren't going to make it typically weed themselves out very quickly. And they do for how they act with the weapon. Like, that guy is just an asshole because first thing he wants to do, point the gun at him. And you're like, nope, he ain't going to make it. We got to get rid of him. You got to go. Look, 2 weeks on the job, you pointed a gun at somebody. What happened? Oh, it was a traffic stop and the guy was black. Yeah, you're gone. You know what I mean? Or,
what happened? Remember, I told you that's what happened with the guys around him who were getting in charge. Like, I don't think there was one that was longer than a year.
Right, but to his point is like, look, if that happens, or the taser, you pull the taser out. Like, what? That guy, he's just not the right fit. He's like, you're gonna know through interviews and the process. The process is meant to weed these people out because of all of the signs that are going to lead
But
up
what
to
about
this.
that guy? Because he's not the
Well,
only one. That's what I'm
again, my point goes back.
Oh.
Then it's the Chiefs' problem.
Gotcha.
Then you got to be talking to your mayor,
people.
and you got to be talking to the people who are in charge of the chief police to get him out, because it's his job to chief the police. He's the chief of the tribe
Right.
of the
Yes.
police. So it's, hey, you suck, you got to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
'Cause I'm
that's
like,
why if you're a good chief of police, you're not going to hire Dickie Dickinson to come over and wave his taser around because he just got kicked out of the next county over. No, I don't want none of that juju over here. You know what I mean? Let's keep that bad stuff away. You know, and that's the whole point he's getting back to, is like part of it has to do with the leader, and the other part has to do with just the system is meant to weed itself out by all these checks and balances. Like, hey, you pulled the taser. Why? What happened? This is a scenario.
You
They
know,
review the
right.
scenario and
That's
they
the
say,
reason
hey,
why.
you didn't need to do that. You know, there's a warning, strike one, or that type of thing. You know what I mean?
I've seen cops get literal time in prison for lying on the paperwork than more the actions that they did.
Oh, it's a big
It's
big
I was like,
deal.
they
It's
were
a
like
big
they
deal.
were like, yeah, he stomped
internal
somebody.
affairs and
They were
everything.
like, he stomped somebody's face in, but this motherfucker lied on paper about it, and they were like, we're gonna give him 15 years. Like, God damn, yeah, that's misdemeanor assault. Oh, but this paperwork though, you know how much paperwork we do, and it's like, God damn. But I'm telling you, I've watched
that's the
situations where that's
strict
happened.
You know, it's a strict area
So
where
what
they're
you're
like,
saying,
hey,
it goes with what you're
don't
saying.
you
Where
mess
it's
up
like,
protocol.
yeah, it's like you pull the taser, you gotta. I was like, shit, I didn't know it was that much paperwork.
I didn't know either.
I know when you arrest somebody, it's a lot of paperwork, or a good amount at least.
I didn't even know if you pulled a gun on somebody, it was a boatload of paperwork. But he's like, yeah, that's why you can pull it, but if you point it, he's like,
Remember that time I told you that cop
pulled.
well, he pulled it. Oh God, that scared the shit. out of
I
me.
had it pulled on me too. That's why I asked the question,
You
because this is
deserved
the
it.
first thing that came to mind, right? And I did.
You know what's
uh,
funny? You know what's what I used to tell people? I was like, you know the difference between the white and black pullovers? They're like, what? I was like, usually white people deserve it.
It was funny because you walked away and I said to Mike, or I said to Sean, I was like, look, everything I did and got in trouble for and had an interaction with the cop, I deserved every single one of them. You know what I mean?
But
There's all the other ones I got away with that they weren't there for. I'm like, you know what? All right, this one caught up to me.
Yeah, I like I said, if I never had an interaction with the cop again, that would be a good thing.
Listen.
I hate it, man. Listen, I'm not like, if I get, like I said, if I drive past a cop and I could be doing 55 and a 65 and I'm still,
man, yeah, you're still
man,
worried about it. Or the worst is when they get
man.
behind you.
You're like, I got to tail it out.
Like you
yeah.
ever see like a cop like get behind you and you're like,
Right.
and I was like, that's what I'm like, click and next.
Yeah.
Man. And like, because if they start
Right.
following you, be like, God damn it, he's about to pull
Look,
me
Right.
over.
I've. It's actually when I was working with you. I was on my way to work.
Uh-huh.
I went blowing by a cop. I saw him sitting there,
Uh-huh.
and I just pulled over because I knew, like, the second,
Really?
the second I passed him, I saw him start to come out, and he didn't even turn the lights on yet. And I pulled over, and he's like, "Why'd you pull over?" I'm like, "I knew."
Yeah.
I was
You
fucking
got
up.
me. You got me.
You're like, you got me.
He didn't let me off or anything. He gave me a ticket and everything, and I was
Really?
like, "Okay, yep, you got me."
Remember, I got
Tag
my,
your it. Good job, man.
I got my car towed around the corner from where we were because I had that older car and I didn't have because it wouldn't pass inspection, which means I couldn't do registration. So I was like, I rode for like 2 years with the registration being bad, and I swear
That was
to
a
God,
hoopty.
oh yeah, it was, and it's funny because I was going the back way or whatever, and it's through a community. I mean, like a neighborhood, and so I would go down there. And I swear to God, I did it hundreds of times. Not one cop would ever come back that way. This motherfucker had just got done pulling somebody off the main road there.
Were you with me that time I got pulled over in that neighborhood?
No. I wasn't. I wish I would have because I would make fun of you. But I got pulled over, and what happened was I saw the cop ahead, and I could tell like he had his head down. He's probably doing paperwork or whatever, or putting it in. And it's funny. I saw him, and he saw me see him, and I was like, click, going right. And I went into this I thought it was a street, but it was a cul-de-sac, and I was like, fuck.
Now you gotta do a U-turn. He
So
knows what's up.
Well, when I did a U-turn, I waited about 5 minutes. I was like, well, let me wait 10. I was like, he'll probably be done. I shit you not. I went back out and he was gone. I was like, all right, cool. I went gone. And then I went down the next street and this motherfucker was sitting right there waiting on me. And I was like, and the only reason
Gotcha.
I know is because he told me. Because then he was like, "Grip up." I was like, bitch. Because I was like, well, there goes my car. And he pulled me over and he was like, so why'd you turn down that street? And I wasn't gonna lie and say, oh, I was visiting somebody. And I put it down. I was like, you already got me. I was like, because I saw you. and he was like, well, why? He was like, why? Is this some drugs? I was like, no drugs. I was like, it's just bad registration. And I said, I didn't want you to take the car. And he was like, what? He was like, all right. And at first he didn't believe me. And then he went back. He was like, oh, I guess you were telling the truth. He's like, well, I'm sorry, man. He's like, because I stopped you and I ran your plates. I got to take the car down. And I was like,
No, he doesn't have to take the car. That's
well,
BS.
he was nice about it, and I was nice, and I basically was like, you got me.
Yeah.
I said, I've been rolling 2 years strong, you son of a bitch. And he was like, I was like, so what were you? I was like, you don't mind me asking, what were you doing? He was like, I just pulled somebody over. He said, and I was finishing up paperwork, and I just saw you make a quick right turn, which in my mind was a easy left right turn. But he was like, you quickly put on your signal and then made a right turn.
You can't like that slamming on the brakes, quick turn signals,
man.
quick anything. They catch that. It's not as
But
like,
it's funny.
oh.
But it wasn't like I was like,
No, I get it,
dripping.
but like
it was just a quick.
It's
right
just enough to
turn.
catch their attention versus if you just
But
want to
that
go
was
straight.
the funniest thing that he sat there and waited for my ass. And what's funny is I was like, should I go right or should I go left? If I would have went left,
You've been home free.
oh
Right.
man, I would have made it. But
You would have been there next day.
I would exactly. I was like, because I remember, I think I called you to give me a ride or some shit. I was like,
I've been
hey,
sitting
can you
here
bring
for
it back?
27 hours.
Exactly. Oh man,
That's good.
he wasn't an asshole about it. Oh, but
He didn't let you off?
nah, he didn't let me. I mean, yeah, supposedly he said because he ran all my stuff and it came back that he couldn't let me. He was like, he would have let me off if like. He was like, if I just like asked you, he said, but unfortunately, he said, I thought you had drugs, so I ran your stuff. He was like, and because I ran you,
because you ran your plates.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, he was like, because it wasn't like he just was like asking the questions.
He's like, oh, it is out. He's like, no, I ran your plates and it came back.
Because he was like, the way,
yeah,
he
so
was
now
like,
it's
the way
on
you did
track.
it. Yeah.
If he didn't, you're right. If he didn't,
Yeah.
he'd be like, why'd you let him off?
Exactly, because
That's true.
He was
Good
like,
point.
and then he was like, and the camera's on.
He's
He was
like,
pointing at his chest, and I was like. Exactly. I was like, damn. He was like, I'm gonna be honest with you. He's like, you've been so cool with me. He's like, I probably would let you go. He was like, but I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I just didn't believe you. He's like, you just did it too quickly. I was like, yeah. I was like, I knew registration was bad. You was gonna take the car. I didn't want to pay for it.